A couple of cool things happening with Sense Arena and the Hockey Shop, source for sports Langley, thehockeyshop.com. Let's get you right into it. It's InGoal Radio, the podcast with Kevin Woodley and David Hutchison. Welcome to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Darren Millard with you again. Our feature interview today, Thomas Milic of the gold medal winning Team Canada at the World Junior Hockey Championship. And our gear segment is going to focus on your brain and how to keep it smelling nice and all spit and spiffy. And well, that's important, as Woody laughs at me. Like, looks are important, smells important, being comfortable in that mask is important. A little mask refurbishment, right?
Look good, smell good, play good.
Yeah.
I just the idea of my brain smelling good was that there was the chuckle.
Spiffy. Instead of smelling burnt rubber and broken steel and on the cage, you get to smell nice and clean out there. Hey, we got a lot going on. Now, I want to get into this idea of the more shots you face, the better you play and the better record you have. It kind of is counterintuitive to what you would think. But Stuart Skinner will never forget his rookie season in the National Hockey League.
No, congratulations to Stuart and his wife, Chloe, on welcoming baby Bo, 7 pounds, 4 ounces. Stuart, of course, wears number 74 for the Edmonton Oilers. I guess like he could have taken a haircut on that contract extension and made it $7.4 million instead of 7.8, but I'm probably taking the extra $400K rather than the matching numbers, especially since he signed it before baby Bo was welcomed into the world this week. It's been a hell of a year. First time, full-time NHL goalie, pushing for more minutes, playing ahead of Jack Campbell to this point, and starting a family, new contract. Like, been a heck of a year for Stuart Skinner.
I would change my number before I take a haircut to fit my number. Hutch?
Yeah, I think I'd be willing to go to number 78 or number 82, or I guess I can't go all the way to 99, but
I've been putting his name in the fan balloting that wraps up for the NHL All-Star game because I consider Stuart as good as anybody else when it comes to the next guy to join Logan Thompson at the NHL All-Star game in Sunrise, Hutch.
I think your vote is probably the correct one and the one that I'd be using. I don't even know how to add to that, Darren. He's been having a fantastic first year as a rookie and earning more and more minutes. And wouldn't it be great to see two rookies there in the lineup together? Bet you that's never happened before.
Oh, that's a good pull, Hutch. I'd be honest with you, like that's a tough one for the Pacific Division. Like, who is going after or along with Logan Thompson? It's like, and I'll give you another name, guys. I'll give you another name. How about Marty Jones?
How about Marty Jones?
How about the season that Marty Jones is having? And his numbers, I know they don't jump off the page. His adjusted numbers don't jump off the page either.
The wins do.
They sure do. And I think a lot of his numbers got crushed by that 9-8 game in LA. Remember, the Kings pulled their goalie and went Jonathan Quick, followed by Cal Peterson, who hasn't been in the league since. And Marty stood in for all 8 and got the dub. And I think his numbers really got beat up by that. At the end of the day, like, he's playing really well right now. It's not quite a UC Saros level heater, but he's making the saves they need him to make. He's been really steadying for a team that needed a steadying influence in goal. And I honestly, when I look at the comparables and I look at the underlying numbers around the Pacific Division and think of the All-Star game, man, Marty Jones would be a worthy participant.
Well, unexpected in the Pacific Division when you look at goaltenders basically helping save seasons. Seattle and LA are both challenging for first place, but without Martin Jones, didn't see that coming, or Phoenix Copley, that was from left field. They both stepped in and done an amazing job.
And Copley, like a guy that we know pretty well from the North Pole. We talked about it last week, the All Alaska game with him and Jeremy Swayman. It is kind of remarkable. You're right. And some of the biggest names, like obviously here in Vancouver, Thatcher Demko struggled at the beginning, and he's now, we're past the 6-week point. He's skating, but there's no timeline on his return. And Jacob Markstrom hasn't, a guy who was a Vezina Trophy finalist last year, and his numbers, are down well into the negatives relative to expected when I look at the clear sight numbers. So you're right. Jack Campbell too. Right? He's actually had the last couple starts after switching gear have been better for him. His numbers are starting to get better, but there's nobody in the Pacific Division that's near the top of the NHL. Let's put it that way. And there's a lot more guys that you would have expected to be in that conversation that are on the other end of that list, creating opportunities for guys like Phoenix Copley and Martin Jones. And hey, I think we'll give ourselves a little back pat here. We called Logan Thompson playing well at the beginning of this season. There were signs that he was capable of this.
John Gibson, the last rookie goaltender named to a National Hockey League All-Star game. And for Jack Campbell, I don't know where you guys are on this, but he made a save the other day that was spectacular coming across. Glove stop. Everybody in the rink gave him acknowledgement. The LA Kings, 2 players, tapped on the pads and were joking around. And 2 minutes later, they went to video review and determined that the puck crossed the line in his glove. I don't think that should count. Goalie union card, that shouldn't count. You make the glove save and you hold on, whether the puck's in the net or not, it should be a stop. Hutch?
Full stop. I agree with you.
Those are beer league rules. If I make a spectacular save and you try and tell me the puck was a quarter an inch over the line, you better run for your life.
Yeah. Good point. And I'd be right behind you. I'm always behind everybody because I'm really slow. But
I've got the corollary to that rule, which is after making a spectacular save, the whistle should just blow immediately, because I did see, and I can't remember the goaltender, unfortunately, make a diving paddle stop fairly recently, and then the rebound went into the net. And that's just, that's not fair. It should be considered a showstopper and the whistle blows.
The number of times I've been writing, like covering games, and here in Vancouver, I'm 20 plus years into covering a game, and I'll make a note after a guy makes a spectacular save, and you're like, oh, that's going in the story, that's going in the game story. And within a minute, the puck goes in, and you're like,
that's not right.
Oh man, it should still go in the game story, but you're kind of like, it's no longer as relevant because it didn't matter 30 seconds or 45 seconds later. It kills me because I want to highlight those beautiful saves.
Well, you got to be UC Saros, and you got to stop them all.
Oh my goodness.
That's what you have to do.
He is on a heater. I want to call UC right now and ask him how big the puck looks. It would be a short answer, but he would still give us an answer. Like what is it? Like in the zone? Like it's sort of a cliche, but he's in it right now. No, like another 38 on 39 against the Calgary Flames last night. We all know about the 64 save game. He followed that up with a shutout. Man, he just looks. He's making the game look easy. And yeah, interestingly and ironically, as we have Thomas Milic on as a guest, it really is hard for me to believe that you can watch UC Saros play like that and tell me that there are a bunch of teams, and I don't know how many, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's more than 10, that wouldn't even let their scouts submit a report on the guy because of his height.
What do you think the turnaround was from the start of the season where he wasn't in top form to right now where he's facing a barrage of shots and is winning hockey games and trying to bring this team into the Stanley Cup playoff position?
It's a good question, and I think it would require a deeper statistical dive. I'd have to sort of look at the splits and see if they're actually, because that's the one thing, like we can look at all the different shot types at ClearSight. So if I have a date on when things started to turn, I could tell you where the performance got better. But again, that's just the end result. What triggered it? Is there something different? Like when I watched him, and I haven't watched as closely as I'd like to, but in the past couple of games, like you'd really have to look at, has he changed anything? His setup? Is he managing his depth differently? Are they defending differently? Are they defending better? Because they're giving up a ton of shots. But I'll give you the example of that Carolina game, and to come back to your comment about, why do goalies, so many around the league, we always see that stat, like he is 5-1 when he makes 40 plus saves. Well, hey, if your goalie makes 40 plus saves, chances are, even though your team's not playing well, they're going to get a lift from it. But on those nights, so many of them, what I notice is the number of high danger chances quite often doesn't go up. The number of low danger does. And in the case of that Carolina Hurricanes game where it was 67 shots by the NHL count, surprisingly, ClearSight had 63 because they find the NHL overcount shots on net significantly. That was only by 4. 40 of them were very low percentage. So if you have 40 shots in a night that now other than fatigue and maybe making a mistake mentally as the shots pile up, 40 shots that are like what I call 99%ers, and in this case, they're actually more than 99%, like 99.5% of the time you stop them kind of thing. it's a pretty good way to start feeling good about your game. That's a lot of touches where the result is a positive as a goalie, a positive trigger, a positive moment, a positive finish to that shot, a positive result. And I think that's why you see so many of these stats where guys that face 40 plus shots have these great records or they have these great performances, is because in a lot of those nights, they're stopping a lot of shots that frankly don't end up in the net very often. And they do little but build the goalie's confidence. And on the counterpoint, one of the reasons I think save percentage is going down around the league, and Carolina is an exception to this rule, more and more teams aren't taking those shots. They're not looking for those shots. They have goalie coaches in their ear saying, that's a turnover. Hold on to the puck, find something better, regroup, live to fight another day, and let's not just hand the puck to the other team with a shot that goes in 0.0001% of the time.
Yeah, not just a turnover, but a chance to help the opposing goaltender get into a rhythm as well. So I can see Woody would not be the guy sitting in the stands screaming, shoot, shoot, shoot for his favorite team.
Oh, biggest pet peeve.
Yeah.
When a new goalie comes into the game or a young goalie you don't know about,
throw the puck on net.
And the announcers come on and like, oh, this guy's not playing well, or this guy just got in the game. You got to throw everything on the net. I'm like, why? You want to warm him up? He didn't get a warm up. You guys want to give it to him? Like, create offense. Don't make him feel good. Throw pucks on net. Like, he's still an NHL goaltender, even if he's never been an NHL goaltender. You want him to feel good about being in the NHL? Just throw pucks on net, guys.
No truth to the thinking of just put him under siege and fire everything and he's not warmed up?
I think if you've got some quality, that would be a good thing. But yeah, where's that line, and how can you even know that you're gonna do that? But why not have the guy just sit there and feel nervous for a little while longer before you generate some legit scoring chances?
Freeze him out.
Ready for you. Yeah, there you go. It's like the old NFL timeout before the kicker can go for the long field goal.
Yeah. And Darren, it is a fair point. Like, I guess it depends what you're throwing at net. If you're throwing a bunch of easy stuff from the outside with little to no traffic, then no. But if you're putting the guy, like you said, under siege, there's chaos. He's having trouble finding the puck because, again, in the NHL level, it's your first time. Like, the pace and the difficulty of sort of tracking and finding pucks through bodies moving around all over the place, and the size of those bodies and the strength of them. That's one of the challenges of the NHL. But so often it's just that cliche. New goalie, get pucks on net. Like, if your strategy is like the Carolina Hurricanes to get stuff to the net and funnel bodies and players and create second chance opportunities, and that's how you play normally, great. But if you're a dynamic offensive team that creates quality chances on the regular, then shifting your philosophy to just getting pucks on net because there's a new goalie in there that isn't warm or hasn't played a lot in the NHL is frankly, to me, absurd. It reminds me again of the Carolina Hurricanes of days past, and this was especially under Bill Peters, where they would dominate the shot chart. And you talk to the Carolina goalies and they're like, all we do is warm the other guy up. I don't see a shot for 5 minutes. And then when we eventually do lose possession, it's a 2-on-1 the other way. Like, a little bit of hyperbole maybe there in terms of the quality of the chance coming the other way. But certainly it was frustrating for their goalies because they could see, literally, they told me, all we do is warm the other guy up. And they could see it. So I'm telling you, there's something to it.
Hutch, can you keep Woody entertained for 2 seconds? I just have to go grab my announcer handbook and scribble that one cliche out about
Darren, have you used that one?
Throwing it for sure. I've used that one. Guarantee I've used that one. I've used them all, but I won't be using that one again. Per Woody and Hutch, do not use warm up and throw everything at the goal. Okay, I'm back. What's going on at the hockey shop these days?
You know what's going on? New gear is starting to trickle in. Yes. We don't have it this week. Obviously, we're going to do the mask refurb. An important thing, actually, for those of you who got one that stinks or is maybe starting to fall apart and becomes a bit of a safety issue. I know Hutch has been doing a mask refurb project himself over on the island. So we'll get to that in a minute. But there is new gear showing up next week based on the shipping order and the expected arrival. As we record this, it's not in the shop, but it will be by the time we're back with you. The new True PX3 is in the store and will be on the rack and available to check out and purchase and online as well. And that means it's time for us to go in and do a review. I already shared a little bit of the tidbit behind sort of some of the way that pad came about, with Freddie Anderson being a part of maybe not the design process, but his specs and his preferences leading into how that pad was built. So looking forward to checking that out. And more than anything, I think it's a sign that these things are coming. There's going to be a little bit of a lull from time to time here, but new equipment is starting to come in at the Hockey Shop and thehockeyshop.com. As a matter of fact, as some of the other companies get caught up on gear that was maybe we introduced a while back, but it never really made its way to the store en masse because of all the things that were going on in the world in terms of supply chain issues and shipping. There's a bunch of new stuff on its way. Warrior G6, a whole bunch of that. I mean, again, cool product we touched on once, but then it never really made its way into retail in large quantities. That's going to be in store as well. So lots of exciting things at the Hockey Shop and thehockeyshop.com. Make sure you check them out, whether it's sale items, still some stuff left over from the Boxing Day sale as they try and make room for all this new stuff, or the latest and greatest, as we say. True PX3 this week, some Warrior G6 coming in after that, and then we'll be into the 2023 season soon enough with all the new gear.
Interesting, the mask refurb gear segment that you guys dial into in a couple of minutes does offer some tips on things that I have done that I didn't realize that I shouldn't have been doing on my own. So there's the great advice on how to keep your mask fresh and sharp and looking good and smelling good. But then there's also the, hey, maybe just keep in mind that you shouldn't be going down this path. Looking forward to expanding on that. But let's get to the gear segment. Presented by The Hockey Shop, source for sports Langley, thehockeyshop.com. Dealing with your bucket. Here's Woody and Cam.
Back here at the Hockey Shop with Cam Matwiv to talk a little mask refurbishing. And there are companies that will do top to bottom for you. That's not what we're talking here. We're not talking about like pulling all the foam out and redoing it. Because, Cam, that's not really something say that you don't recommend it. There are stages where you can get away with it. But understand, folks, that if you do change the foams in a mask, those little stickers on the side that say you're CSA or HEC certified no longer apply.
Correct.
So there are foam kits here, replacement foam that they can buy, generic sheets from Nash that you can use to sort of replace parts. But if you're looking to do a full refurbish, change all the foams out in a mask, frankly, Cam, that's not something you guys sell.
No, and again, it has a lot to do with the CSA certification for a mask and things like that. And usually when a mask is getting to that point that it needs to be refurbed, good chance it's probably time for it to be replaced.
Yeah, and think about all the money that you spend as parents, as goalies, on sticks and pads and paint jobs and all those things. The reality is your head's pretty important, so keeping it safe. Like if the foam is literally falling apart, you've worn it so much, there's a chance that it might be time to replace it anyway.
And yes, it is one of those things that obviously I have seen and it gets bad. But it's not only foam that can get grody inside of a mask. As part of your mask maintenance.
That's part of this. So we shouldn't have called this refurbishing. We should have called this more mask maintenance. Some of the things that you can change, that you have parts for here quite easily, that will just help keep it fresh, help keep it lasting longer, and not get gross and start falling apart. And we'll start with the first one, strapping. I mean, the elastic, it soaks up sweat. It gets pretty gross. What are the different kit options you have in terms of the straps that attach the back plate to the rest of the mask?
So one of my favorite ones, and the one that I'm currently installing into my mask, actually, one of my Pro Hidden harnesses. So it's the same, basically Nash elastic material, but it exposes your back plate. So say you have some paint on there and you kind of want to show it off a little bit. You still get that same 5-point connection, but you get to expose that back plate and show off the paint.
So if you're showing off the back plate of your mask, that means you've got your back turned to everyone. So when you're fishing the buck out of your net, Ken?
Nah, not quite. It's for all the people that stand behind me, for all those crowds of people that see my awesomeness when I play. So,
okay, that's what it is. What are some of the other options you've got in terms of strapping, in terms of hardware kits that you can, rust is another issue on the bolts that hold everything together, cage to mask and things like that.
Correct. So chin cups, bolts, things like that. So starting with chin cups as a replacement. Again, easy thing. that we have. Your chin cups get grody. Again, it's something that sits there and absorbs a ton of sweat basically as you're playing. Also your water bottle and stuff like that. Water's getting in there as well. So easy replacement, quick and easy swap out. While you're swapping that out, a good chance to check out the hardware for your mask all the way throughout. So I'm talking about their cage clips, screws, all that kind of jazz. Bauer makes an entire replacement kit. It's one of those things I actually recommend every goalie has within their bag. You never know when something, you take a shot off the top of the helmet or something like that, and you need to quickly swap out a screw or something like that. This might even be something that happens mid-game. So if you're lucky enough to be on a team that has trainers and things like that, this is something that you should be carrying or your trainer should have for you on the bench for sure.
Coveted mask. It looks like you've got a kit from them as well.
Correct.
Chin cups. Interesting. One of the things we talked about, replacing it. Toothless Woody can tell you that chin cups matter. Have an article that's out just now talking about with NHL goalies. It's amazing how common it is for them to lose teeth. And most time it's because the chin cup has gotten a little too loose. The face is a little too close. So if you've got one that's just sort of started to fall apart, or it's got an elastic component to it, and that elastic has gotten stretched out, replacing it would be a good idea. Otherwise, as you move up the levels and the shots get harder, it is quite possible. As a matter of fact, I'm shocked at how often it happens, having talked to a lot of NHL guys that, frankly, I didn't know had fake teeth. Very, very common. Shot hits the chin. Bottom of the opening is close to your mouth. If there's too much travel in that chin cup, to borrow the phrase that Craig Anderson used, he's lost his front teeth 3 different times. It will pop up and knock your front teeth, maybe not out, but cause enough damage that they need to come out. So maintaining your chin cup, as much as Darren loves to rag us about making sure you have a dangler on there, maintaining your chin cup is an important part of mask safety as well.
Yeah, there we go. There's one we didn't quickly mention too. Obviously, we got quite a few danglers there as well. If you're looking at your dangler, it's all scratched up. It's just like a player visor. If you can't see, that's a problem. Might be a time to replace your dangler as well. But
what about the other one is headbands,
sweatbands. Yeah.
And you got some, you got Bauer, you got like all the stock ones, but you got any of them ShamWows?
Moment. I think we're out, but I'm sure that's a cue to make sure that we're going to have some more coming back in.
Reorder some, because I use that and it is beautiful. It soaks up so much sweat.
All right, you heard it here first, our advertising man for ShamWow sweatbands.
I like the ShamWow.
Chop, chop.
I'm all about the slap chop too. Don't make me do the full advertorial. Okay, Cam, so basically at the end of the day, there are a lot of different things you can do to keep your mask in best shape, which will make it last longer.
Correct.
There is also a fine line between what you can fix and what you can't fix. And as usual, the best way to get the answers is to call you and your crew, because they will give you the honest answers. Folks, I've been in here personally. I've watched parents come in. Oh, my kid's moved up a level. I want to spend $1,000 on the best mask. And Cam and his guys will be like, okay, but the adult mask and the level he's at, it doesn't fit. Like, they will give you an honest answer. I've watched him basically turn down a sale of a higher price product because it wasn't actually going to keep the kid any safer. They will give you honest answers about, whether that mask is savable, what things you can do to keep it fresh, whether it's time to just replace it. So give them a call if you've got any questions about mask refurbishing, about, the steps you can do safely, where that line exists in your world. The number they can get you, Cam?
604-589-8299 or 1-800-567-7790.
And of course, you can always find them at thehockeyshop.com.
Thanks, Cam.
That's really cool. And all the different options that you can get into when you're talking about just making sure that your mask is up to date and as prepared as it can be to protect yourself. Nice. Thank you very much for the dangler mention.
Yes, we got to take care of our boy Darren and his danglers. Now, I got to say, and we mentioned it in the segment, there are things that the hockey shop can't sell you. There are things that, and very legitimate reasons at times, that they can't recommend things. If your mask is toast, relining it. I mean, I've got one on the wall behind me that one of the coolest paint jobs I ever had. It's an old Eddie mask. I love the paint job. It felt bulletproof. I felt so safe in that. And it looks fine. Like, it looks like it's fine. But all of a sudden, every shot off the mask started ringing badly in my ears. And I don't know if people realize this, but if your ears ring, it's actually a minor TBI, traumatic brain injury. Not serious, but it's actually considered a minor TBI. Once your mask if it's never rung before on shots and all of a sudden it starts ringing, Patty O'Neill, the Canucks' long-time equipment manager, told me it's probably compromised internally. There's probably a crack that's developed inside the mask. And so now it sits on my wall with all its pretty art. Courtesy, I think that one was of Headstrong Graphics. So thanks to them for the paint job. So it's hanging on the wall. But that's not one that a new foam kit would have fixed. That said, if your foam's just worn out and you're confident in the integrity of the shell, you can't get it from the hockey shop, but you can get foam kits. Hutch, you're doing one right now. I think you're using, I can't remember which company helped you with the new foam. So we don't want people to think it's not possible. But just be aware you lose that CSA approval, and make sure you're confident in the integrity of the shell before you replace that foam. But walk us through your experiences, Hutch.
I'm not sure that I would take this step if it was the one and only mask in the bag and I had to rely on it for a season. I think I agree with what you and Cam were discussing in there, Woody, that with the amount of money that we spend on gear, to not spend the money on a helmet because you think you can eke another year out of it is probably not the smartest thing to do, especially if your son or daughter is playing at a high level, facing some extremely challenging shots and the ones that really hurt. But to be fair, I would even add to that I first purchased a pro helmet for my son when he was in Pee Wee, because there's nothing that can replace confidence and the ability to stand in the net and feel like you're not going to get hurt. So that said, back to the refurb guys, Matty has a second helmet, an older one that we retired and followed that advice and got him a new one. There's a special night coming up for his team. They're doing a country music night and bringing in a singer to do the anthem and a show at between periods. And he and a bunch of the guys are big country music fans. So I thought, you know what, here's a good chance to refurb the old helmet, because it's probably not a bad thing if you're lucky enough to have this luxury to have a backup around just in case something happens. So little investment for one night, and pulled out the old helmet, and it was in rough shape, boys. Like, everything was rusty, like you were talking about, to the point that I even had to get the Dremel out to cut a few of the bolts off. And so we got all the hardware out, we got the foam out. I didn't know there were these sort of foil-like linings inside the Bauer helmets, a number of strips, which I believe are there to reduce the sound from the vibration. So that was an interesting thing just to discover, pull things apart, see what's under there. So liner out.
Put on the foil.
Yeah, putting on the foil for goalies. And little trick in learning in the process. This was Junior's idea. I don't know if you've seen that pink solution they sell at Costco. I think it's this cleaning solution for just about everything. He took that and the magic eraser and went at the helmet, and that got off the old stickers really easily. Nice little tip. Got it nice and fresh, and we've sent it off for a wrap from our friends at Custom Cages over in Vancouver, and getting a nice wrap put on there. If anybody wants a wrap for their helmet, Custom Cages is a great place to go. Very affordable, dozens of options, customized to your team and everything. It's really cool. And we're putting a new foam kit in, and that's also done by a Vancouver-based company, Resilient Goalie Foam, and they've got multiple setups depending on your helmet. They've got multiple types of foam, depending on the type, even colors. And again, like I said, would probably make me a little nervous if I just said, hey, Matty, here's your helmet for the year. Let's try something with some new foam. But as a one-off, see how it goes, few practices and a game, it's a nice chance to evaluate this, and I'll get back to you on all of that. And it's a nice chance to have a little bit of fun for one night as we're preparing for a special night for the team. Also, it's funny because I was editing your gear segment, Woody, as the stuff arrived from the hockey shop that I'd ordered from Cam, which included the hardware kit from Bauer that you guys discussed. This was not set up at all. It was a complete coincidence, Darren. The hardware kit arrived. A new chin cup. Matty uses the Sport Mask chin cup. We happen to have a Sport Mask helmet here at one point. He took it off, put it on his helmet. He's never gone back. It's hard plastic with a liner in it.
Yeah.
I think just for comfort, he likes it. A little bit more like a football chin strap than anything. So we ordered a new one of those. And again, the harness that Cam was discussing that will allow you to see the artwork on the back plate. But it was in your chit chat that was not included with the gear segment that Cam mentioned. You don't get the backing to those screws. I'm pretty sure it wasn't in the gear segment, Woody. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but You don't get the backing for the screws because they're actually part of Bauer's liner, because the Bauer padding is effectively screwed into the helmet. So we do need to go and find those. So if you are ordering new hardware and you think you're going to need those backings because they've rusted out or something, make sure you talk to Cam and say, hey, send the other side too, please, because he's got those if you need them.
I am going to say that if you had to take a Dremel to your hardware, you either waited too long to do the refurb.
Oh, way too long.
Or as you said, because this isn't your main mask, it's not something you would send your kid out on a day-in, day-out basis. Might be one of those ones where you think twice about. And again, he's playing like junior already. For those of us in beer league, it's probably just fine. But just there is a line there, guys. And as we said in this gear segment, as Hutch mentioned, like really, you're gonna spend thousands. You're gonna like update your steel. You're gonna buy the latest chest protector every year, but you're gonna let your helmet wear down and wear out. Head's most important protection. I've seen parents at multiple levels do it over the years where they, they will walk in there and spend $5,000 on new gear, the latest pro pads, gloves, and then they'll walk over to the helmet thing and be like, oh, what about the cheaper one? I'm thinking maybe your kid's melon might be more important than, making sure his blocker matches his pads at some point.
No, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again. It was transformative when I put him into a pro helmet. He had reached that age where guys were getting the puck up high and hard, but he was still quite young and small, and he was starting to flinch in net, and put a pro helmet on him, and he has not flinched once in his life since then. I kid you not. It was transformative to his enjoyment of the game, number one importance, and then as a result, the way he was playing. And we got lucky. The kid's got a large melon. He could fit a pro helmet when he was young, but and as Woody said many times before, nothing matters more than fit. But don't cheap out on the helmet. We can make them better. We can extend the life of them a little bit, but it's not what I'd be doing for a primary right now.
And that's the other thing. Cheaping out means if it's compromised. We talked about bent cages, and you guys gave me crap a couple of years ago because I had a cat eye where the lower bar was bent back, and I kept using it. That was stupid. But if you maintain them with these hardware kits, by cleaning out the liner, by replacing some of the parts that hold the mask together, you're not going to get to that it's done, it's falling apart stage as soon. It's like taking care of a car, right? It's going to last longer. It just doesn't mean it's going to last forever.
I do replace foam in the primary mask that I use, but I don't use like the same foam as the mask manufacturer.
Mm-hmm.
Am I taking a real chance in that?
Well, that's what Hutch is doing right now, right? With the resilient foams. I think the reality of the CSA approval, for a Bauer mask, Aaron. Now your friends at the Vegas Golden Knights could probably get a replacement liner, but they would just replace the mask at that level. But they don't sell it at retail. Like they don't make it available to stores.
No, I'm not used. So
because of that approval process, right? So there are some really good second market foams available out there. Some specialty foams that aren't just blocks of standard foam. There are some kits that have some impact absorbing stuff. There's lots of different options out there. The one thing I would say is, as these companies, and we've talked about CCM, I'm in an Axis mask right now with the fluid pods. Like, you can't just go buy the fluid pods off the street, right? Like, as the technology and the pour on in the Bauer masks and the foam liners that they have developed and spent a lot of money on trying to improve impact resistance, as those things get better, not being able to replace that and just putting in a standard foam, compromise would totally be the wrong word, but you might be getting a little less protection depending on that. That's not the foam kit necessarily that the mask was designed to be used with.
I do like getting my X-Acto knife out though and cutting all the holes and things like that.
They don't let me. This is why I could never do this. They don't let me have knives here.
The other thing you can do by getting bulk foam, whether it's the stuff that Cam was talking about in the gear segment that you can get off the shelf, or whether you go to a place like resilientgoalie.com, which is where our foams are coming from, they can also help with the fit, right? You might have that extra spacing between temples and helmet, and you might want to get a little bit extra in there to create a better fit. Kevin, you asked about or mentioned that there's different options. I think Resilient has, I'm just flipping through here, about 7 different foam options, and some that they consider more protective than what many of the manufacturers are sending out in their helmets, or you see in pro helmets.
Yeah, like I would say that if I remember correctly, they have some multiple density.
Yeah, they've got
layers
the
where
dual
you can
density pour on. You
combine
can
different
get dual
densities.
density STN, STR. There's all sorts of different options available depending on what it is that you think you're looking for. Different price ranges, obviously. And if you're a fashionista like Kevin is, you can get about 15 different colors in a dual density UVA as well. So
Sold. I'm in. Colors. I'm in. Like forget my brain. Darren will help me make sure it smells nice, as he said at the lead into this. My brain will smell nice, but it's all about look good. So if they make multiple colors, I'm in. Done.
Let's do it. Speaking of really cool things, our friends over at Sensorina VR, continue to push the envelope.
they sure do. I actually have been trying out the NHL shooters, little area where we do some workouts. We do a little bit of physical stuff, and then we throw on the Sensorina and do a little bit of work. And I did get to try out the NHL shooters. Before, I just been reporting to you on what Sensorina told us and then what Maddie experienced. And I got to tell you guys, it was pretty cool, and they can shoot the biscuit. It is a challenge, but it is a whole lot of fun to face that challenge. For me, the biggest thing, I felt like I could make the saves in most cases, but the actual physical tracking of the shot I found incredibly challenging. Like fully tracking right into either hand, much more challenging than what I'd done in there, and certainly than anything I'd seen on the ice before. But one of the cool things about Sensorina, of course, guys, is they actually report on your reaction time to a shot and how well you are tracking that shot. I won't report those scores to you. I was 100% on my angles. Didn't need to move in the drill I was doing, but that's okay. But my reaction time and my tracking, not so good. But it's really cool that you get those exact analytics back after your drill so that you can focus on them and try and improve them. Very impressive. But the other thing that's happening with Sensorina, guys, just sort of celebrating the fact that they've got the NHL shooters in there, is they're bringing a new competition to Sensorina users. Starting, I think it's next week, somewhere around the 23rd, 24th of January. They're going to be having an NHL Shooters Challenge, and then they're going to be having a special skills challenge. One challenge each week. Your chance to get in there, and there'll be gift cards awarded to the top 3 goalies each week in those competitions. So nice, fun way to get involved in Sensorina, to see how you're doing compared to other goalies. I can't tell you how cool it is just when you see names you recognize there. So, Matty did a drill, comes running in, and he's like, "Hey, I'm now ahead of," and he mentions, was it Drew Camesso? I think he got one place ahead of him, but I'm still behind another goaltender. All this sort of stuff is just a great way to get involved in the community and get training with other guys out there. So yeah, the opportunities that Sensorina provides for us are all fantastic, guys. Not just the NHL shooters are new. The other thing is, if you happen to have the Oculus headset, because maybe Santa left it under the tree because you want to try some of those cool games that Darren and the girls play together, you can now get a free 7-day trial. So you can find out what Sensorina is all about without making a commitment. That's fantastic. And then if you're maybe not ready for that full commitment, because it's not cheap, to be fair. Buying a great tool like this that will improve your game is not easy to do. But they've also got a lower price segment that includes a subset of the different drills that are available, including all the neurocognitive stuff that we don't even talk about all that often, just a chance to really work on your eye-hand skills and your processing skills outside of the specific hockey arena. So thank you to Sensorina. We do suggest you all get out there and give it a try, whether you try the new 7-day trial or maybe you want to make a commitment right away. If you do, use that code IGM50 for extra savings on top of any deal they might have going on at the time.
I would suggest a InGoal challenge, but you guys never do it. And when you do it, Hutch, you just get little Hutch to wear the headset for you and you cheat.
I don't cheat, but I do drag his stats down. Because it's all on his account when I hop on.
Is it all on his account?
Yeah. I haven't set up another one.
That's good. That's really good.
Dad.
No, but the other thing I noticed,
Dad?
I think this is fairly new, but I don't use it as much as Maddie, so I'm not sure, is you actually can toggle so that what you're doing doesn't count against the stats that they record. that you couldn't do that before. I'm quite sure of that. I don't know when it got added in. So now I actually went in there the other day to try the Devin Levi sit on the couch and watch the shots without actually trying to make a save to improve your tracking. And I was able to tick off that please don't count these 0 saves against Maddie.
Oh, that's pretty good. So it's actually a training tool because you would use it more because it wouldn't bring your stats down. That's an advantage, not just father-son and getting in trouble as dad.
Yeah, and it's not quite as bad as the old video game thing where you can just restart it until you finally get the score you want. But
No, it's a good thing because there are guys doing it. You talked about Levi, you talked about Eric Comrie, you talked about like not moving and then flipping the script and being able to look at the replays from the puck perspective to see how close he was to the puck without having to move. And if you're a young goalie and you're competitive, you want to be able to do those drills because there is value to them where the puck is going in the net, but you're still getting work out of it and not have it hurt you in your overall score. So I would cheat like crazy and just not count anything until I felt like I was in a UC Saros zone, which probably doesn't exist for me, but I think it's a good thing.
And congratulations once again on your angle work. Well done.
Thank you.
Box control.
I was a math teacher, so I better get 100% on angles.
What's the feedback on your own personal reflection after your conversation with Thomas Milic?
I was just really impressed with the young man. It was a fun conversation, as I think people are about to hear. It was pretty cool. I'm not going to lie, to get into the fact that he is an InGoal subscriber, as we talked about. Both the goalies in the gold medal games were InGoal subscribers. But it was really neat to hear him talk about sharing the account with his dad and his dad sending him some of the stuff that he's been working on. And after you listen to this interview, there's a couple of things he did really well. We talk about size and the way he used overlap. It wasn't just a regular old overlap. We actually did some video with Thomas after this interview, and I'll fill you in after you listen on what that article is going to look like at ingoalmag.com and some of the things where, these are actual saves we saw in the World Junior Championships and reviewed that sort of have origins in an article and a save technique introduced at ingoalmag.com.
Awesome stuff. It's the feature interview brought to you by Sensorina VR with a thinking man's goalie, Thomas Milic, a world junior champion.
Incredibly excited to welcome to the InGoal Radio podcast. First time guest, but InGoal premium subscriber. And this is, I believe, the third time in a row that we have had the World Junior Championship goalie join us on the podcast shortly after winning a gold medal. Welcome to the InGoal Radio podcast, Thomas Milic. Congratulations on an incredible tournament. I know you went straight back into a road trip and a tough road trip, a grinder of a road trip back east with the Seattle Thunderbirds afterwards. Have you had a chance to soak in everything that's happened yet?
Yeah, no, thank you very much for having me on the show. I've been a fan for quite a while now. And yeah, like you said, off and right, that Eastern Swing road trip was, pretty grueling, not only on the body, but the mind as well. Just spending that much time in a hotel and, going right back to being on the road with the long bus trips. And, it's been tough, but I think I'm still trying to soak it all in back home now in Vancouver, Coquitlam specifically, and spending some time with family. And right when I got home yesterday, I had all the neighbors and a whole bunch of friends waiting for me at home. So I think just seeing all them, how happy they were to see me and how supportive they've been throughout this whole process is, really helping me soak it all in.
We're like almost a couple weeks later here. Do you still? Is there still emotion when you see, especially when you go home and you see people that have been part of that process for you, part of that journey? And, I'm sure the family got to celebrate with you already, but some of those other people that haven't yet, to see them for the first time since such a big moment, are there still emotions there?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Of course, I've been getting tons of texts, the last few weeks since the tournament ended, and, everyone congratulating me, but actually being here and seeing them all in person, just seeing how happy they were. And all the neighbors, especially, how supportive they were. It's pretty cool just knowing that I have so many people behind me supporting me.
I mean, again, it is so fresh, but what are the memories that jump out the most? Like, if somebody asks you, I'm sure you've had it already, and I'll do it again, but the favorite memory so short after the tournament, what is the favorite memory, the one that jumps out, the moment that jumps out the most to you?
Yeah, for me, I'm sure for most guys, of course, when we won the game in overtime, it was a roller coaster of emotions getting to that point. Being able to finally have a little bit of peace of mind and knowing that it's all over and we can celebrate now. I think that was sort of the moment when I really realized that, we get to enjoy this. And I think all the hard work we put in is, about to pay off.
The pressure that comes with playing for Canada, especially at a tournament when you're the hosts, we saw the crowds. And there's probably a lot of young goalies that haven't been in these big moments yet. And I know part of the answer is you've been in big moments all along the way, whether it's U17, U18, WHL. But you talked about those nerves. What advice do you give to others? How did you handle them? How were you able to stay in the moment until it was time, as you said, to just relax and enjoy it?
Yeah, no, I think there's a few different ways that help me deal with the nerves throughout the tournament, and not only then, but other games I play in Seattle and wherever else. I think I'm pretty fortunate that I'm just someone who's naturally pretty good at handling high pressure situations. Just something I love. I think it's awesome. But of course, I'm sure you heard people say that pressure is a privilege. So I think I really just try and be as grateful as I can for the moment. There's thousands of kids that would do anything to be in, the position I was in just a couple of weeks ago. Really just trying to soak in the moment and really be grateful for the opportunity that I have playing alongside and against all those incredible players. So I think really just enjoying the moment as much as I can and trying not to take it too seriously. At some point, you've got to be able to surrender the outcome and, just rely on all your foundations, all the hard work you've put in getting to that point. I think, once you almost go on autopilot a little bit when it gets into those situations.
Well, I want to get to what that foundation is for you and all the goalie coaches and playing partners along the way that have helped build it. But you talked about embracing pressure and thriving in the moment. I heard a quote or read a quote along the way about that being part of what you liked about being a goalie. Was that always there, wanting to be the guy? Because I think it's not necessarily innate in everyone, but it feels like it's almost a prerequisite for succeeding in the position to actually want to be that last line of defense.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's honestly probably part of why I became a goalie in the first place. When I was 9 or 10 years old, I think I just loved being able to have so much influence and control over the games. Obviously being a goaltender, you typically get a lot more hate than you deserve, and sometimes a lot more praise than you deserve at some point. So, I think just being able to be that guy at the last line of defense to be able to make a game-saving save, or just keep the team in a calm state of mind when things get tense. So I think I just love having that ability. And, I think, like you said, I thrive under pressure, and it's just something that I've always liked from a young age.
Okay, so young age, you said 9, 10, that's where it started. What, other than that pressure, what else drew you to the position? How did you become a goaltender? Just not far down the road from me out here in the Vancouver suburbs.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up playing Goalie minor hockey, and of course, like most kids, it starts out that there's one set of gear that's floating around the team. Either take turns or randomly assigned who gets to be goalie that week. And I think it was just something that started off with me having my turn every once in a while. I was pretty good at it, and eventually a couple kids didn't want to be it, so I'd always be the one volunteering to go in net. And then I think it eventually just evolved into being part-time goalie, and then eventually, like I said, around 9 or 10, that's when I became a full-time goalie.
Was there anybody that so as you're falling in love with the position, as that passion is being built, was there a guy for you? Somebody, whether it was a NHL guy or even in junior. Sometimes our inspiration come from lower level leagues. Like who was the guy that Thomas Milic was envisioned himself growing up to be when you started playing goal?
Yeah, well, growing up in Vancouver at that age, Roberto Luongo was always my guy. I think I'm not in that room right now, but in my bedroom here at home, I've got a life-size poster of him that I've had since I was 6 or 7 years old, and it's still up there. So he's someone that I always grew up watching and looked up to. I think he's just awesome role model for a lot of great kids. actually during the tournament as well, this was right after the quarterfinal game. I got surprised with a video message from him actually, just wishing me luck throughout the tournament and, just try to have fun, really enjoy the process. So I was pretty starstruck when I got that from him.
What is it like? What does it mean? Like beyond being starstruck, like does it cement the moment? Not that you could add any more pressure to it or make it any bigger than it already was, but that you're getting messages from the guy you grew up sort of idolizing and wanting to play like, and all of a sudden, whether it's on your phone or wherever, there's a video message. Hey, this is Roberto Luongo.
Yeah, I don't think it really changed much with the pressure of the game, but I think it really just, made me realize, how cool it is to be where I was at that point, knowing that not only family and friends are behind me, but knowing that all these previous Canadian legends that have been in the same shoes as me at that point in their careers, and just knowing that they're all sporting and they're all watching as well. So I think it really just made me realize how cool of a moment it was for me.
You talked about the way you manage pressure, and I think it was one of the things that impressed so many people, how calm you stayed and how you didn't deviate from your game, no matter how big the moment got. One of the earlier answers, you talked about how to help calm a team down in those same pressure situations. I remember a few years ago, we had Joel Hofer on after they won, and he talked about some of the things that he tried to do. For him, it was taking whistles early so that the team could always regroup. It didn't get too scrambly. Are there things you can do tactically to try and help slow things down or calm down a team, help your teammates in those high pressure situations?
Yeah, that's a tough thing to do in a short-term competition, especially when, a lot of your teammates are new. You've never played with them before, and, a few of them you have, but when you're on your club team, these guys have seen you play, dozens of times. And they see you in practice every day. But when you join a short-term competition team like this, it's hard to build that foundation in such a short amount of time. So I think it's really important to do whatever you can to build that trust, right from day one. I think that starts with just getting to know the guys pretty well and, just letting them know that, you're going to do whatever you can to be solid every single night. And, I think tactically, like you said, in games, that's a great point. Trying to get early whistles. If you're playing the puck behind the net, making sure those passes are nice and crisp and clean. Really just showing that you, regardless of what happens in that game, you're going to have the same mindset for every shot. And, you're going to be ready to face whatever comes at you. Because let's just, for example, in the USA game in the semifinals, I think they had a couple early goals. And, I think the big turning point for me in that game is, not letting that faze me at all. I think there was definitely some tension on the bench, like you could sense from, okay, might be running away from us a little bit, but, I just did whatever I could to, get a few clean saves under my belt and, really solidify that, this game's long from over and, every single one of those guys on the bench could trust me. I think a lot of it comes into that.
I guess like when your game is so much about control, the last thing you can do in those moments is deviate. And because that's the one thing, right, about this position, you can't try harder. It usually doesn't work out very. It's kind of like golf and swinging harder on that first tee, right? It doesn't usually go all that well. So being able to stick with your game and show that you were still calm in those moments, I got to imagine that rubs off on others.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another thing I've been working on a lot in the last year or so in my game is, really eliminating a lot of tension that comes with, playing in those high pressure situations. I find sometimes in the past when I'd come into a big game like that, I'd be a little nervous for the game, which is usual, but I think I let that physically get to me. I'd be holding my stick a little tighter. I'd be flexing my arms and holding my glove up, and it really distracts your mind from, what's important, which is, you're tracking, you're reading the plays, and, doing all the whatever you can technically to get an edge on the game. So I think if I can just, eliminate a lot of that tension, and, it really just helps me rely on my foundations that I've, spent so many years building up now.
Okay, so tension, as the goaltending coach here in Vancouver, Ian Clark, has told me many times over the years, tension is the enemy of goaltending. How did you have to find techniques? Was it more just, hey, I can't get too tense here? Or were there actual ways, maybe little tips or techniques that you use to sort of make sure you for some guys, it's breathing exercises. How did you get the tension out of your game? Or was it simply just recognizing that tendency and trying not to give into it?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. A lot of it was just, starting in practice, just trying to adapt my stance a little bit to, ease a little bit of that tension, just knowing that I can make the saves, a little bit of a looser stance, I guess you could say.
Is that when you say, stance, sorry, Thomas, don't mean to interrupt, but like there's so many goalies, right? They want specifics, right? They're all listening. They all play the position. That's the one thing we get to geek out here, right? Like, so when you talk about stance, is that just sort of narrowing it up? Like I've seen guys literally sort of shake the hands out a little bit at times. What for you sort of releases it when you get into your set?
Yeah, I think that's it. Exactly. Narrowing the stance is something I worked on a lot of as well. And, I think you can see right before face off in the D zone, you can see my glove shakes a little bit. I'll be kind of just shifting my weight a little bit from my left to right leg just to ease a little bit of that tension. And then from an in-game standpoint, there's a few things that I do, whether, it's breathing or have a couple of keywords that I like to say aloud as well, just to reset my mind a little bit. And
we've heard that over the years, from World Juniors right up to the NHL. Some guys will write it in the back of their blocker. They'll write it on a stick. Can you share the words with us? And no pressure if you're not comfortable with it, but I'd be curious.
Yeah, of course. There's a few things I say. One thing is clean, crisp, solid. Not really sure where that started, but I think it was my dad actually. When I was younger, he heard it on a podcast or read in an article about the whole having keywords idea. And, those three words really just stuck with me. It just, brings me back to my foundation and everything I have to work on. And, it really just helps me focus on what's important, having clean and crisp movements and, just being solid for your team every night.
Love it. I love it. Sounds like your dad's been a big part of goaltending for you. Did he play the position? Did he help you as a coach when you were younger? Or is he just number one fan and supports you whatever way he can?
Yeah, he never played, especially as a goalie. I think he was in some beer leagues when I was younger, but, nothing too serious. But, he's been great, right from a young age. He's been my number one supporter for sure. And, he's really just a student of the game as well. He's kind of on this journey with me as well. If he ever sees an article or a clip from a podcast or whatever, he'll send it over my way so I can read it as well. And, I do the same with him. He's just super interested about the position and, hockey as a whole. And I think a lot of that's rubbed off on me as I've grown up here, really just having a passion for the game and, outside of the rink, just doing whatever I can to learn and, experience more about it.
I love it. And now we know why his name and his email's on the InGoal premium account with us. So he's reading right along with you, eh?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. He was the one that got me into it originally. So yeah, I've been hooked ever since.
Oh, I love that. That's a great story. So who else? We talked about how you got started. We've sort of walked through, and I want to talk about that foundation because I heard the quotes about how you just, you felt your game was in the best place it's ever been. But maybe let's rewind and talk about how you built up to the foundation you trust now. Who were some of your early influences? We talked about watching Roberto. I know Burnaby Winter Club. There would have been some Sean Murray in there. I saw some congratulations messages from him. Who are some of your biggest influences you started maybe getting more serious about the position after 10, 11, you became a goalie full time?
Yeah. So when I was younger, of course, Roberto was my guy. Watched him a lot. And then, not a Canadian, but I watched a lot of Jonathan Quick as well growing up. I just loved how athletic he was and how fun he made the position look. So I think those were probably my two guys growing up that I like to watch a lot. And then, from a goalie coaching standpoint, I was pretty lucky to work with Pascal Delana a lot growing up. I always did his summer camps, and then I remember waking up at 4:30 on a school day to get out to the Richmond Oval to get on the ice with him for a 5:30 morning skate before school. And I think he was a big key in establishing that skating foundation as well as my tracking as well, which is a strong point of my game. I think he was just so detailed from a young age and really helped me establish a great foundation. Then, like you said, moving on to Burnaby Winter Club, we got a few great years of Sean Murray there. Same thing, he really established that foundation and solidified it. And I love working with him. He does a great job there. And from there, I've had a handful of great goalie coaches I've worked with. Just to rattle off a few, Matt Korchmar and Lyndon San Martino I've worked with the last couple of years. And they've both been great with, really tailoring to my needs as a goalie, really just doing whatever they can to help me succeed.
A lot of names I recognize there for sure from the area, Pasco and Linden for sure. You end up going to Seattle, WHL, and I know there's been a change there, but we've done some stuff in the past, actually, ironically, through Hockey Canada, with a guy like InGoal, who would have been there when you first got there. I know now it's Brad Guzda. Hopefully, I'm saying that right. I haven't had the privilege of meeting him yet, but obviously he's doing a hell of a job too. What's that like when you get all these different voices? And you said you're building your foundation. Are you just trying to add pieces with each one? Sometimes that can be tough. You get different voices, and some guys want you to try different things. You're still a young goaltender. How do you approach that? Being receptive, but also sticking true to what you feel are your strengths.
Yeah, of course. I think one thing that's helped me out a lot as a goalie developing is really just having an open mind with regardless of whoever you're working with. I've had some great coaches and some not so great coaches, if I'm being honest. And, luckily I'm a lot more great than not great. But I think everything that all these guys have to say holds incredible value. I think if you can just at least give something a try before totally shutting it down, I think you'll definitely be surprised at a lot of things that you might not think work tactically, but you end up adding into your game, and they can become a staple of your game eventually. So I think really just coming into the new coaches and new teams with an open mind, and really just trying to be a sponge. And even if it's not something you use in your game, you might be able to see other goalies adapt to it and see what works for them and what might not work for you. So I think it's just cool being able to be a sponge and absorb as much knowledge as you can.
No one way to play this position. Can you give me an example of something tactically over the years? And you don't have to name names where you're at first, maybe you were like, I'm not so sure. And then you end up using it, maybe not even as a foundation, but something you still employ in your game that you might not have been as so excited about at the beginning. Honestly,
something that's a huge foundation to my game now is the overlap, especially as a quote unquote smaller goalie. It's something that, really makes the game easy for me. And, when I first heard about it, it was, a super foreign thing to me. And, just not having that post to really grab onto with your arm. And, I just couldn't really tell what was behind me at first from a young age. And, the more I saw other guys do it, I was just seeing, how well it worked for them. And, just being able to adapt and add it to my game has really helped out a lot. I used to be, swore toward the RVH, and, of course you get beat over the shoulder every once in a while. And, then you realize, hey, maybe there's another way to do this. So, I think the overlap was something that, I honestly didn't love at first. And, now I love it a lot.
Okay, so interesting, because I had made a note that was something I wanted to ask you about, because I thought you used it really effectively in the tournament, and it was impressive. Again, it's not just about being able to overlap or being comfortable in overlap. I think like anything, because you still use a reverse and used it effectively, and it's a key part of most goalies' games in today's age. It's all about knowing when to use what, and I love the way you manage that. So walk me through getting comfortable. You said, when you're first introduced, like at what age, and how you built up that comfort through reps in terms of when to use it, when not to use it, when to use a reverse. And you mentioned size. Obviously, it becomes a part of this discussion no matter what in today's day and age with goaltending, as much as we sort of just cringe at it at times here at InGoal. And we'll get to that later. But how did it just overlap? How did it become a big part of your game, and why do you think it works good for you? And how have you adjusted your use of it over the years?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think can't really remember the exact time or age when I was first introduced to it, but going on to the usage of it, when I was working with Pascal Atlanta, one thing that he really emphasized was having a game plan for just about every situation that can come up in hockey. So I think just finding multiple ways to make the same save as well can be beneficial. You don't want to be super predictable as a goalie either. You don't want to be 2 feet in front of your post every time they come down the wing. You also don't want to be stuck in your overlap or in your RVH every time they come down the wing. So, I think if you can be unpredictable as a goalie, but while also having confidence that you are going to be filling that space regardless of what position you're in. I think that helped me out a lot.
Yeah, I love that. I love that answer, by the way. You probably tell by the smile on my face as you were answering it. Like, unpredictability, I think it can be a really good thing. As long as in your own mind, you're in control of it, right? It's not willy-nilly, just throw whatever you want unpredictable. There's certain guidelines you're using, but shooters can't just bank on seeing the same thing every time. I love that. I love that mentality. Has that been something that's taken a while to embrace, or you've been sort of on that path for a while now?
Yeah, it's something I've done for quite a while now. Like I said, just being able to be open-minded and adapt to any situation. So I think, I don't know who told me that when I was younger, but just being able to have a couple of different save selections in your toolbox, for any given save. So I think that's the biggest thing that's helped me out there.
Well, I think we've had a few articles on that. Maybe we'll just pretend that your dad clipped one and sent it to you. And I can tell you right now, we're definitely adding another Thomas Milic version of the unpredictability can help you article that'll be up there soon after hearing that answer. Big stages, big experiences. Burnaby Winter Club. You played one game with the Coquitlam Express. Then you go to the Dub. But you've also had opportunities with Hockey Canada, with Canada, U17, U18 World Junior Championships, and now with the like the big stages, the opportunities. Can you sum up what they've meant to you in terms of opportunity to play at those levels? And I guess the other part for kids that may get a chance to do that, the few that do, how do you approach it? How do you embrace it?
Yeah, I've been pretty fortunate to be, play for a lot of great teams, and especially the last few years here with the Hockey Canada program from U17s all the way until the World Juniors this year. It's honestly just been the coolest thing ever. I'm super grateful for, every opportunity I've been given. And I think a lot of that is, been helping me manage, all the pressure, all the stress and everything, just being grateful for the situation that I'm in and, really, trying to get the most out of it. So I think just, regardless of what team you're playing on, I think just being able to appreciate, everyone that's helped you get there and everyone that's helping you while you are there. I think that's really helped me manage, everything that comes with playing with those high experience clubs.
When you get into those situations, quite often there's the support mechanisms can be like pretty high end, sports psychologists, access to mental coaches. Was there anything you took away? I'm guessing from a goalie coaching standpoint, as much as there's great staff involved, you're probably not changing your game in a short-term event, in a short tournament. But there are other resources, like I said, mental skills and things like that. Have there been other things you've added at some of those events where maybe you're not going in there and changing your game a whole bunch, but you're adding other pieces, maybe between the ears as much as between the pipes, beyond the experience of the event itself?
Yeah, absolutely. Kelly Garb was the goalie coach this year for World Juniors, and I know Benny and I absolutely loved him. He was great right from day one. He, really emphasized that he's not here to change our game in that short amount of time, but he in practice he's always willing to throw something out at you and see if you like it or not, and really just be supportive, but not try to change too much as well. And especially on game days as well, he kind of leaves us alone and lets us do our thing. But he's he was great for the whole tournament. And then from a mental side of the game, there's of course, like you said, Hockey Canada does a great job of providing support staff, and then mental consultants and sports psychologists as well. So I think I really just try and absorb whatever I can from those people, especially in a short amount of time. I'm someone that loves learning about all that, that the whole mental side of the game. I read a lot of books, regarding that. And, I've worked with a couple of different sports psychologists as well, just to, see what they have to offer and, see if they can do anything to help my game. And, I think that's something that has helped me a lot is you don't have to have someone to rely on, but I think if you can just always be learning and, always be expanding your knowledge of the topic, it really just helps out a lot.
You make yourself the resource you can rely on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So kids out there, we're going to go with Thomas Milic's reading list here. What were some of the books that you like for when you're working on mental strength and reading? Are there any that jump out that, we can add to some kids' reading list here as they try and become better goaltenders by being more mentally strong?
Gosh, I'll have to.
I put you on the spot. I apologize.
I know I'll have to pull up the list on my phone here.
You've got like do a fair bit of reading then.
Yeah, just the last couple of years, I've been trying to get into it a little more. I grew up never really reading all that much, but last few years, I think it's been a great pastime for me. Just whenever we have a decent amount of downtime, being on the bus, on the road all the time. So I try to do as much reading as I can.
I love it. I won't put you on the spot with the list if you don't have it, but maybe we'll make you send it to me later unless you. I really did put you on the spot there, so we can add it to the show notes if you want later on.
Yeah, no, I'll try to rattle off a couple off my head, but it'll take me a minute to find the list. But I spent for a little while. I was getting into the whole Navy SEAL culture and everything they do. And I think that was something that a lot of the guys on our team were getting into as well. So read the David Goggins book, Can't Hurt Me. That was a pretty incredible story that everything he dealt with. And then the Jocko Willink book as well, Extreme Ownership. Really just taking ownership of everything you do in your life and being your own boss. And then I'd have to send you the rest of the list later, but.
No, it's all good. That's all. We'll take the list for an article later, but I love those two teases. Sound like a great place to start. Let's go back to your game. My game is in the best place it's ever been. That sounds like a really nice place to be as a goalie. Sounds like you really have a good handle on your foundation. Putting you on the spot here again, but have you been able to articulate what that is for you? I mean, we talked about the 3 words before: clean, crisp, solid. What is that spot? What does it feel like? What are the points of emphasis now that you've experienced that and felt that, to stick to it, to stay to it? What will you go back to as that foundation that felt so good?
Yeah, of course. I mean, first I'll go back to that quote that I said, about being in the best place it's ever been. And, honestly, that's something that, I, not only for myself, but for, the team and everyone that was listening to it. A lot of the reason why I said that was just to really instill confidence in myself. I think if I'm saying that, I'm on an interview like that, I think it really just hardwires it into my brain that, I am in a great place right now. I am confident and, I'm ready to succeed, regardless of, where my game might actually be at. In that scenario, I was very happy with where my game was at, but, there were days, leading up to the actual games, from training camp, in between that and the preliminary games, we had some hard practices. Maybe my body wasn't feeling great one day, or a couple guys were feeling a little crummy leading up to that, but really just being able to establish that confidence, whether you have to make it up from scratch, that I am in a great place. And I love where my game is right now. I think that really helped me out.
I love that. That quote jumped out to me so much. So to hear the thought process behind it, this is a hell of a podcast already. There's a lot of kids that are taking notes here right now, Thomas. The vibe in Seattle. What's it been like that last? I mean, obviously there with the Thunderbirds, but around that area, what's the vibe like now compared to pre-Kraken from a hockey perspective? I'm just curious. We both grew up, obviously, just up the road, up the I-5. I used to go down to Seattle for Mariners games, Seahawks games. Now it's a hockey town too. Has that affected you guys? Like, is there more hockey buzz around the team? I mean, the Thunderbirds have always had a strong following. They've always had a strong support group. But I'm just curious what the vibe's like in the city from a hockey perspective, and if you've seen it change since an NHL team sort of joined the market.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely had a pretty big influence, with the Kraken coming into town. But I think it's definitely been a positive influence so far. The buzz around hockey, it's been growing, every month I've been there, just seeing all the young kids that are really getting into it. So you see a lot of first time kids that are going to our Thunderbird games. A lot of people, don't quite have the money to be going to Kraken games every night. So, being able to support their local Western League team, it's awesome seeing how many kids are getting into hockey now and adults that are getting into it as well. And I think before the season, we had a bunch of the teammates came down ran some kids camps just for, the local kids, we're just helping them out. And in the second week of that, they actually had an adult camp with a whole bunch of adults, whether they're parents of the kids that were skating, they were all getting into hockey as well. So I thought that was pretty awesome.
I love that. I love that. We need to now careful. There's a whole group of InGoal listeners that'll be looking to come down for a beer league camp next year. You'll end up running the whole goalie school for all us old men trying to stumble around the crease if you're not careful here.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Let's talk about, obviously, there was a lot of talk about you not getting drafted. How have you managed that in the past couple of years and continue to maintain what appears to be a very positive growth mindset that allows you to get to I think from the outside, if you had dwelled on that, you probably don't get to where you are here right now today in terms of the success on the international stage, the success you're having with the Thunderbirds, and a lot of people talking about what's next. How did you manage the disappointment of those two and maintain this focus?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it was disappointing not getting selected, either of the drafts there. But I think one thing that really helped me out a lot before that was, really just going into the draft with a mindset of, regardless of what happens, it's not the end of the world. And even if you do get drafted, then, that doesn't mean you've made it. It really doesn't mean much at all. So I think really just coming in with the mindset of, it could go either way, having a plan for both ways, really helped me deal with, of course, the disappointment that came with it at first. And, honestly, I think it's been a good thing for me, right from that first time that I wasn't selected, it, really lit a fire deep inside me that, is still growing to this day. So I think it's really, really helped me, not only not worry about the draft, but, it's a lot of positives come out of it as well. Just being confident, wanting to win just that much more, and, wanting to grow as a goalie as well.
And you got some dev camp opportunities out of it as well. What were those experiences like in terms of, like, it's funny, like you said, like you didn't get drafted, but you still go to the exact same camp as drafted goalies and get to live that experience and learn from that experience, I'm imagining.
Yeah, of course. So the first time through the draft, I was invited to Seattle's camp. And unfortunately, I didn't actually get to go since I broke my finger, just a couple of days before the camp. So I was pretty bummed out about that.
That's got to be disappointing.
Yeah, no, that was pretty frustrating. I wanted to play through it, just tape it up and, ignore what all the doctors were saying, but
go full Ryan Kessler and just tell them to cut it off.
Exactly. But no, they were pretty adamant about me, in the long term, it really made sense to get a proper recovery. And, I had to get surgery for that too. So it made a lot of sense just to pass that one over and just get healthy and get playing games again. So, yeah, of course, that first year was pretty frustrating. And then after the second year, I went to Minnesota's camp, and that was an incredible experience. I had their dev camp in the summer, and then their rookie, and then I got the main camp invite as well after that. So that was just an awesome experience. Especially once we mixed in with all the NHL guys. I think my stall in the dressing room was just 2 or 3 over from Marc-Andre Fleury. So, like I said before, I was pretty starstruck. Just seeing him and meeting him as well.
Well, and of course, and then I'm thinking from a goalie coach perspective, you're getting to work probably with Richard Bachman, Freddie Chabot, 2 guys who've had a ton of success. Richard, one of our favorites from a teaching perspective. Some of his articles actually up at the website. And Freddie Chabot, a guy who Devin Dubnyk told us about years and years ago as a great goalie coach, and we've had a chance to meet him. Again, shorter environment. Do you have takeaways beyond being a few stalls away from Marc-Andre Fleury? Are there elements, anything in there that you added that might have been a little different that you thought about putting into your game, even as short as those experiences were?
Yeah, working with Bacher and Freddie there was incredible. I love both those guys, and they were super open to just wanting to help me in my game specifically. They weren't trying to make me into Fleury or trying to make me into any other goalie. They're really just trying to help me in my game. And, especially Bacher, he was great. I remember following his career, when he was still playing just a few years ago, and seeing how he's really lost none of that. You see him demoing the skating patterns and everything, and he's just flying around the crease, super crisp with all his movements. So it was pretty cool seeing how just a different goalie mind. I love talking to ex goalies and current goalies as well, just trying to learn anything I can from those guys. And, Bacher is especially awesome for that. And I got a text from him after the tournament as well, congratulating me. So it's pretty cool seeing that.
Nice, great guy, and a guy who had a lot of success. Not to go back to the size thing, but a lot smaller than you, and had a really good pro career. And when you talk to him, he just had an understanding of how to manage his size really well. And for all the focus that goes on size, I'll throw you a quote as well. We talked about tension being the enemy of goaltending. As much as they seem to want to chase 6'4" and 6'5", if there's a perfect size, it might be not far from where you are. It's just the guys that are bigger get every shot, and the guys that are smaller have to work a little harder to get it. How have you, other than having to deal with questions like this, how have you managed to, sort of adapt your game to some of the perception about size as much as the realities of it?
Yeah. Going back to Bacher there, I think it's probably part of the reason why I like working with him so much is, we share similar traits as a goalie. And, I remember watching him play before and always liked how he played as well. So I think a lot of that was part of why I liked him so much. And then, in my game, I think a lot of it is just playing with the mindset like you are 6'4", 6'5". A lot of times you don't need to be that big to, fill the space. And, I think a lot of it, I make up more than enough, a lot of that size with, my skating ability, my ability to read and react to plays as they're developing. So, I think it's such a term that's, I know you guys at InGoal hate it as well, but, just the whole size doesn't matter thing. I'm a huge believer in that. And, I hope that can inspire young goalies as well. They're growing up in the same situation as me.
Well, I was going to say, 2 years ago in the WHL or a couple of years ago in the WHL, we see the success that Dustin Wolf had. We see how he's translating it with an incredible first full season in the American Hockey League. He's followed that up again. We talk a lot about UC Saros. As much as being on that side, maybe on this, below that 6'2", if that's the scale everybody works off of, leads to comparisons. Like, do you watch their games at all and look for anything? Or is that almost as ignorant a question by me, like stereotyping, right? Hey, you're under 6'2". Do you study all the other 6'2" goalies? I don't mean to be that way, but are there things you can take away besides the inspiration of the fact these guys are proving it doesn't have to matter at the highest levels?
Yeah, I've always been a big believer in, not having one favorite guy and, taking bits and pieces from, various goalies, whether they're, 6'6" or 5'11". So, of course, I had my guys growing up, and, I still do have a handful of guys that I like to watch. A few of them are Shesterkin and Saros are probably my top two in the NHL right now. But honestly, when Dustin Wolf was still in the league with Ever there, I remember playing against him and watching him. I just absolutely loved his game. I would always watch, even if our Seattle team was playing a different team, I'd be watching the Ever games just to, see what he would do tactically. And I was just so impressed by, his skating ability, his ability to play big. I think I've probably said this before somewhere else, but he was just someone that I looked up to as a goalie. Even though I was playing against him every few nights, he was just an incredible guy to look up to.
And a guy who almost didn't get drafted. I was at that draft, and yeah. So let's move.
Sorry to jump in.
Yep.
Another guy that I watched a lot when I was sort of first getting into the league. He was just getting out of it, but Beck Warm, when he was in Tri-Cities, I just loved how his technical game was incredible. I was a quote unquote smaller guy as well. He was just the way he managed the crease and, just everything about his game was just so pleasing to the eye to watch.
Another guy, actually, it's funny. I was just going through some clips from a camp up in Kelowna that we take part in, the Net 360 camp, and Beck was one of the guys up there working with Bacher. And I'm brain cramping on the Minnesota Wild goalie who is up there with us right now. But so it's, small world, right? Small world. And the focus sometimes I think I'm with you. It's too much on size. So let's switch off of that. I have one last question for you because I'm famous for last questions. But as I'm looking through the photos, Thomas, Burnaby Winter Club, even I think the U17 tournament, I'm seeing Vaughn. Then into the dub, I'm seeing CCM. Now, Bauer. You have checked almost every box. I'm just waiting for the Brian set to show up.
Yeah.
Talk to me about gear. Talk to me about how it's changed over the years, and what you look for, what you're after, what you're looking for in equipment, and is that part of the experiment? Just like you're working and trying new techniques, and maybe the overlap wasn't there for you didn't love it the first time. How have you sort of moved through these different gear options? Because we're talking about not just different brands, but different styles of gear, and found something that works for you.
Yeah, totally. I knew I was going to be asked this question. It's been switching a lot the last couple of years, but I think all of that, like you said, is just having an open mind and being willing to try everything. Pretty fortunate playing in the Western League. The pro reps are always happy to send you out a set to try out in the summers, and of course they all want you wearing your gear. So I think I started with Vaughn. That's just what I wore back in the Brady Winter Club days, and then my first year or two in the dub. And I think I was just sent the CCM demo set in the summer. I liked it, and then funny enough, I changed my glove completely. It wasn't the comparable. It wasn't the comparable glove to the Vaughn glove I was using. That's it's actually pretty funny.
So did you go? Where were you? 600, 590, 580? Where'd you go on the CCM glove?
I ended up with the 600 CCM glove.
Okay.
But the reason I ended up with that was because I was on the phone with the CCM rep, and we were checking over all the boxes for the specs. We got the pads done. We got the blocker done, and then he asked me like, "What glove break do you want?" And I told him, I don't know that much about gear. I haven't really felt a CCM glove in a while, so I just told him, what does Wolfie use? Those were the words that came out of my mouth. He told me the 600. I'm like, all right, let's do it.
I love it. I love it. And then, like, Bauer's a different style of gear. Was there an adjustment period there? I remember writing the first review when Odin first came out and talking to pros who said, like, it's a different feel on the leg. You have to tinker with your strapping a little bit and get it dialed in for your game. You got to give it a chance. You got to give it some time, because you might not set it up the same way, but you can achieve the same feel with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another reason, why I have been so easy to switch gear or switch brands the last couple of years is, I'm someone who's really not picky at all about my gear. You could throw me just about any set in the world as long as it's close to my size, and I'd be able to throw it on and play with it. I'm someone who's not really into all the specs and everything. I think my current Bauer pads are pretty much stock, aside from an extra calf strap towards the bottom or something. But I think it was the same thing. I was asked if I wanted to try Bauer set in the summer, and I said sure, why not? And I ended up really liking it. And I think a lot of the reason why I like the Bauer pads right now is just the rigidity and the how solid the seals are. I think Bauer. I was always kind of thrown off from Bauer. Everyone was always talking about how the durability issues and stuff with previous lines.
Things of the past. Those are things of the past. It's funny how that perception can get out there. We actually have a set here that we've loaned out to junior and junior A goalies to as they tried to make that adjustment and wanted to sample it. We've got to be well over 400 games and practices in this thing. The blocker is like black, the gloves, and it's still going. Like, it's funny because of that perception, and yet because of the way the core's made, it doesn't really break down from a core perspective.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I had that same demo set from the start of summer until I think pretty much right until just before the World Juniors. I was using it in games in Seattle, and I only had one set of glove and blocker. I think it's easily been the longest lasting gear I've used so far. I was super impressed with that, and that's definitely the reason why I chose to stick with it. And I just like I said, the rigidity and the seal that it provides is incredible, even after using it for so many skates.
Yeah, you surprised a few teammates the first time the puck came off those pads compared to what you were in before?
Oh yeah, they get frustrated all the time. They'll be shooting for our pad for a rebound. It just flies right over their stick, and sometimes out of the zone.
I love it. I love it. And I've loved this conversation, Thomas. It's gone on longer than I said I'd keep you, but I can't thank you enough. I love how open you are to trying new things, whether it's working with new coaches, new tactics, new techniques, and even new gear. I think there's a lot of young goalies that can learn from that mindset, that approach, that openness, as well as a lot of the things that you shared about your experience at the World Juniors. And I know a lot of them are going to love listening to this. So thank you so much for taking the time, and congratulations on an incredible tournament. I can't wait to see what's next for you in the WHL and beyond. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, that was cool. I didn't know him until this interview. I feel like I know him really well after listening to you guys have the conversation.
Which is good because I didn't know him either, Darren. So I think that speaks to just the kind of person he is, just very open. He shared a lot of details in his game. He shared a lot of details in his evolution, talked openly about some of the frustrations of the draft. We've seen this over the years, right? I think it's like Jeremy Swayman when he was in college before he made the NHL, where you listen to an interview like this, and in my case, meet a guy for the first time in an interview situation like this, and you're just kind of instantly a fan, right? Like I am now a Thomas Milic fan. Not that I wasn't before, I just didn't know him. But I will be watching and following and cheering for his career from now on for sure.
I just love the fact that he's his own guy out there. He doesn't chase the game because there's a perception that he's undersized. Like he's still a conservative, reads the game, plays it the right way, no matter whether he's 6'8" or 5'2". That's what I appreciate about him, Hutch.
I love that point, actually, Darren. Yeah, I think you're quite right. He plays, to an extent, a bigger man's game, and really showing that, as we say so often, you don't have to be huge to fill the net at a conservative depth. If you watch what the puck is seeing, the net is filled by most goaltenders in most situations. And so Thomas knows that, understands that, and plays a slightly more conservative game that gives him the opportunity to take shorter routes to pucks, to control the game a little bit better. I mentioned it when we were talking right after the World Juniors, how much I enjoyed that he could make what I think for other goaltenders would be very challenging saves look very simple because of the way he does it. The overlap that Kevin was talking about is one of those things where you might see another goaltender down in the RVH and it becomes a little bit more challenging situation, both to contain the puck and maybe to fill the net space as well. So, I loved watching Thomas. I've watched him live a few times. We pumped my son's tires on here quite a bit. I need to tell you, Matthew's shortest stint ever in a Western Hockey League game was with Thomas Milic at the other end. Matty didn't last very long at all. I'm not sure Thomas made a save before Matthew exited the game. But I've been a big fan of his for a long time, and look forward to seeing more of him.
Well, speaking of the overlap, we did have some video cut that we went over with Thomas for an article that'll appear for InGoal Premium members at InGoalMag.com. And I think there are some really good lessons there as we get into the debate about reverse and reverse VH, and with a lot of talk around the World Juniors about maybe it being overused or improperly executed, leading to goals at that level. And so it was very interesting to see the success that he had using an overlap, and then reviewing the video with him and watching some of the keys for him. You understand why he has success using it, why he's comfortable with it. Part of it is making sure he picks the right spots. It's not willy-nilly. He talked about unpredictability and showing shooters a different look, but it's not just like riverboat gambler, I'm going to throw this out here this time and that the other time. There is an element of when each one applies the best for him. And it was interesting. So make sure you check out InGoalMag.com over the next week or so as we get that sort of laid out and designed in the video cut, because, there's an element here. It's not just an overlap. He flattens out on the inside in certain situations, and a lot of people would call that, and for those of you that have resisted this one, just quiet down in the back, they would call that the panda. And
come on,
sure enough,
Woody. A panda is just an overlap, isn't it? Isn't that what everybody says? It's the same thing. I've been teaching it
it
forever.
is, but it's flattened out overlap purposely. And so if you watch how he executed it, there were a lot of times where he did, and other times where he just squares up. But there are times where it gets to a certain spot and he does flatten out on purpose so that he can get across if it becomes a wrap. So that he's got more in the net for a push if the pass goes across, like all those different elements. And interestingly enough, you heard him talk about how he's such a big fan of Dustin Wolf in our interview. That article at InGoalMag.com and the fact that Dustin Wolf was a big part of it was one of the reasons, he talked about a technique he wasn't comfortable with at the beginning, but became a big part of his game. Probably a little more willing to give that one the old college try and stick with it a little longer, because it was Dustin Wolf, the guy that was demonstrating that video in the original article we had about sort of that flattened overlap, the panda, at InGoalMag.com. So again, another cool moment to be reviewing video of a gold medal winning performance and see a technique that was introduced to this young man because he's an InGoal premium subscriber. That I got to say, like, I don't mean that as a feather in the cap moment. I'm not trying to, like, I don't have the back padding machine out. It's more that it feels pretty darn good to know that it's not just a business, InGoal Magazine for us, it's a passion. And that some of the lessons, thanks to coaches who share with us, like Thomas Spear, that are willing to go over the things they're doing, there are young goalies out there that are getting better or adding things to their game that they might not otherwise have tried. And like you guys can see, I'm beaming right now. Like that's a pretty cool thing. That's a pretty cool thing to hear. And so I can't wait to share that article. Just as much as excited as I was about this interview, and I hope everyone enjoyed it. There's more to come from Thomas Milic, and trust me, it's going to be worth visiting.
I think it's a much deserved pat in the back, but it's also a proof of how much learning that you guys do along the way. You take it in, you find out about it, and then you pass it along to the world. So it's the whole goalie union where you pay it forward, what we learn about this position.
And I think the one thing I want to emphasize here is that it's none of that is possible. None of it. If every time we see something we think must be different, or not even that, just anytime we record a drill and we go to talk to the goalie coach afterwards, whether it's in the American Hockey League or the NHL or in the summers at the camps, none of this is possible if that goalie coach isn't like, yeah, here's what we're working on. Here's what we're trying to do. Here's where it fits. If they go into secrecy mode, and hey, I get there are some things you want to protect. I fully understand that. And some guys don't want to share anything. And I respect that because they work hard at their craft to stay ahead of the curve. But it's the coaches that are willing to share those tidbits. You're like, Thomas Spear is a USA hockey guy. And something that he shared with us helped Canada win a World Junior Championship. But he's still willing to share it with the world because we have international subscribers. And as much as it feels like we're patting ourselves on the back, I think what we should be applauding is the openness that we get from so many goalie coaches from all countries, willing to go into these techniques and how to execute them the best, and why they may, or in some cases, in a lot of cases, may not work for every goalie. So thank you to everyone that helps us continue to make InGoal a resource that can lead to conversations like this.
You know, it makes me think of another world that I was a part of for a while, which is scientific research. And if every scientist out there kept all of the information that his lab is working on private just for them, the world of science would never progress, right? The reason that we have all these great scientific breakthroughs in the world is because one lab does some work and then they report their findings to the rest of the world so that they can be worked on and replicated and then built upon. And so these guys being generous in sharing their knowledge and information with the rest of the goalie world allows other coaches to try things. They maybe tweak them a little bit. They maybe challenge them a little bit. And together, cliche for your book here, Darren, rising tide floats all boats, right? Everybody's going to get better together. And you can bet that people who've seen what Thomas shared with the Panda, for example, are going to it's going to evolve over time. And it will then trickle back and help those goaltenders that Thomas works with or other USA-based goaltenders. So I think it's great for everybody. And thank you, as Kevin says, to everybody who's willing to share with InGoal and willing to have the open mind, right? If you just sat there and saw these things happening, and if we were grumpy old men sitting in our chairs here. "Well, I've seen that before. What's the point in sharing that?"
I think that's a great point.
Yeah. So
that to be open to it, and not just dismiss it.
no, for sure. Like I've definitely learned over the years that we'll look at something and I'll say to Kevin, "Oh, no, that one's not going to be all that interesting. People won't find that very, very cool." But we put it out, and all of a sudden, that's the thing that takes off. Or there'll be something that we think is new and exciting and is going to take off in the goalie world, and it just trickles out there. So you can never really predict what's gonna happen. You got to put it out there and let the world decide.
Well, and I got to say, you know what? Like as we're going down this road and sort of thanking Thomas Spear, in our old website, the original InGoalMag.com, before we revamped everything and went to the premium product, there's actually an article, and this might be like 8 years ago, with Charlie McTavish, who is now the goalie coach, goalie development coach, American Hockey League goalie coach for the Arizona Coyotes, Tucson Roadrunners, and Paul Schoenfelder, who's now the goalie coach for the Carolina Hurricanes. So 2 guys working now at the highest levels of professional hockey that weren't at the time, that did a free article for us as reverse and RVH and all the transitions to that as a new tool were coming out, where I think they called it a reverse VH overlap. And in a lot of ways, it's the Panda before the Panda. Wasn't necessarily broken down to as specific a save situation as we did with Dustin Wolf when we presented that article, but wanted to make sure I gave them stick taps too, because there was a foundation there, concept wise, that they had long before any of us ever talked about this. So it's, there's so many good minds out there in goaltending, and we can't thank all the ones that have taken time over the years to share their thoughts with us.
That's exactly the example I talked about there, Woody, right? Science. The original idea came out. It was what we see now before, but Thomas has then evolved it, tweaked it. And as I said when we were talking before, I have to give credit to Perry Alderbroom of Golden the Net, who showed me the overlap at least 10, maybe 12 years ago as well. So it's great to see the position evolving.
And now we get to scratch our butt in the post.
Butt scratches.
Feels good. Hey, thanks to Thomas Milic for joining us on the feature interview brought to you by Sensorina VR, the gear segment, Mask Refurb from Cam over at the Hockey Shop, source for Sports Langley, the hockeyshop.com. What's happening over at InGoal right now, Hutch?
Pro reads.
Oh, yeah? You're not Hutch. You speak
I'm
for
helping
Hutch.
Hutch.
Yeah, but he's done all the writing, and he's super excited, so he wants to share it with everybody.
He may be a little. He may be a little behind in his writing, and he can see Hutch struggling. Be like, "Has Woody done anything lately? Can he get him off his ass?" I'm like, "Yeah, I did this."
I love it.
Okay, I got a few things I'm halfway through too. We'll get there.
Halfway, I got a lifetime of halfway throughs sitting around my house.
Around to it.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, great stuff this week. Awesome. Amazing with Thomas Milic. So fresh after the World Junior Championship to be able to sit down with a gold medalist who was through the pressure cooker quarterfinal, semifinal, and the championship game as he that's on top of what they went through early in the tournament with Team Canada. Awesome stuff. Really revealing. And thanks to you, goaltenders and parents and supporters out there. We'll talk to you next week on InGoal Radio, the podcast.